Welcome back to the Next Gen Amolytics. Today I'll be going over week 9 of the NFL. I'll give you guys a few player props as well as some touchdown scores that I like. I will give you guys a floor and a ceiling of those player props that I like, and meaning that the floor is a minimum that I would take them at, as well as the maximum that I would take them at being the ceiling. I will say starting out that I know I got my Browns gear on. I know we trashed this year. We on a bye. This is about the only time we're not taking a loss, so let me live. Let's get into it. First off, I like Justin Herbert passing yards against the Titans. Titans are a team that are not getting much pressure on the quarterback. They got Simmons out, their best D lineman, potential defensive player of the year this year. He's out, as well as they just traded, I believe, McQuarrie, see a slot corner there. That was probably their best corner other than Snead, who's also out with injury. So I believe Herbert along with Ladd, they got Allen as well as Johnston, and then that rookie tight end that's doing pretty good as well. I believe that Herbert has a great game here. I have a floor of him at 200 as well as a ceiling at 225. Just due to the script, I don't know how close the Titans can keep this game. They're not very good by any means. This is on the road, so that does help a little bit as far as the script, but this is either going to be a positive or neutral script for the Chargers. I do believe that Herbert gets here. He's been doing quite well this year, leads the league in passing yards. Had some down games about week 4 and week 5. Most of his O-linemen were injured and out. So in those games, he had 203 and 166, but he's cleared this 200 line in all but one game, being that 166 that I mentioned against Washington. And then he's cleared this 225 in all games except for those two, week 4 and week 5 that I mentioned there. So I like this for Herbert. These are important games for the Chargers for them to make a run. You got to have these games against, opponents like the Titans. So I like him to keep it going here. In that game, I will say I am heavy on the Chargers on this week against the Titans. I like Vidal, the running back there that's taking over for them. They just put Hassans on the IR, so he will have the whole rushing load here for the Chargers. He had 18 carries in his first start against Miami, only 9 against Indianapolis, in which that was a negative game script for them. They were passing the entire time as they were down. And then he had 23 carries last week against Minnesota. In those two games, he had 124 and then 117 rushing yards, and then only 20 against Indianapolis. As I said, it was script-based there. I like this against the Titans. As I mentioned, it should be a positive game script for the Chargers, in which that he's getting all the carries here. I have him at a floor of 50 plus rushing yards with the ceiling of 70 plus rushing yards. Next up, another Charger here, Ladd. As I mentioned when I was speaking about Herbert, the Titans just traded away their best slot corner, which Ladd is playing, for the most part in the slot. He's been targeted 35 times. Hold on, let me 34 times in the past 3 games. Looking more like last year again. Has 7 receptions, 9 receptions, 6 receptions for 167 and 88. I will be taking his receiving yards here. I got him at a floor of 60 with a ceiling of 70 plus in this game. Next up, I like Jaxon here. Going against this Washington defense that's not good by any means. They're pretty old. To be honest, I don't know who they're going to have on him. I don't see anyone on that team guarding him. I'm forgetting two's name right now. He's from Ohio, just traded from the Saints. Lattimore. Lattimore is not guarding Jaxon, so I have him at a floor of 70 plus, a ceiling of 80 plus here. I believe that Washington does make this game competitive, though. Given that this is a game that they need, to keep them in contention here. They got Daniels coming back this game, so it should be a neutral, if not negative, game script for Seattle, in which they're going to target Jaxon. Next up, I like Jamarr Chase of Cincy going against Chicago. In a game that should be high scoring, I believe the over-under was at about 51.5 there. So it's going to be points scored in this game. Chase, his targets in the last 3 games since Flacco came over, he had 12, 23, and then 19 last game with receptions of 10, 16, and 12. I believe he keeps it going. Chicago is down Johnson, who I've mentioned on this prior, and then they also just lost their top slot cornerback, being Gordon. So I like this for Chase. I believe that he keeps it going. He is chasing a milestone right now. I was looking at it earlier. Let me find that real quick. So if he has 10 receptions this game, he'll join Calvin Johnson and the only NFL player to have 4 straight games with 10 plus receptions. And then if he has 8 catches, he clears Brandon Marshall's 45 for the most receptions ever in a 4 game span. So he has some milestones that he's looking at here, and I think that he does them. As I said, the ceiling does lower a bit with Browning, but hopefully Flacco plays. The floor is still there with him. I have him at a floor of 8 plus and then a ceiling of 9 plus receptions in this game. Next up, moving into the tight end position, I got Tucker Kraft of Green Bay going against Carolina at home in a game where Green Bay is projected 28.5 points, I believe. He should be in a line for a touchdown too, but I am going with his receiving yards here. I got him at a floor of 40 plus as well as a ceiling of 50 plus. That is script based though, because I believe that Green Bay is going to be up a lot in this game. Carolina is only projected maybe 14.5 points in this game, so it's going to be a positive game script for Green Bay, but I still like his targets. He had 9 targets against Pittsburgh last week, 10 targets the week before that against Arizona. This is a great spot for him. He's hit the 40 plus mark in all but 2 games this year, and he's hit the 50 mark in all but 3 games this year. So I like this for him at home against Carolina. I believe they're bottom 5 also with fantasy points allowed to the tight end position. Next up at the tight end position, I got McBride at Dallas. This is a Monday night game, so you can keep this out of your slips on Sundays if you want to, as you would have to wait for this. But this is just too good of a spot, against this Dallas defense who's horrible. I believe Brissett is starting, which I wanted. He gets McBride the ball. McBride's been going crazy this entire year, but especially with Brissett, starting. He's had 3 touchdowns in the last 2 games with Brissett, starting with 11 targets against India and then 13 targets not last week, but 2 weeks ago against Green Bay. So he's seeing the ball a lot with Brissett out there. This should be if not neutral, negative game script for Arizona. So they'll be passing the ball, and he'll be in a great spot, as I mentioned. And then I have him at a floor of 5 plus receptions with a ceiling of 7 plus receptions. Moving into my anytime touchdown scores. First up, somebody from Green Bay. As I mentioned, they have a team total implied of 28.5. I like Josh Jacobs, someone who scored in the last 4 games, scored in all but 1 game this year when he was at Cleveland, who's been great against the running back position, so not necessarily counting that, but I have him scoring here against this Carolina defense, in which they just allowed James Cook to go for 2 last week. Next up, I have Gibbs of Detroit. Detroit has an implied team total of 28.5 as well. At home against this Minnesota defense, who's been allowing the running backs to go, crazy. I believe last week Vidal had a great game. Yeah, he had 117 yards against him. I can't quite remember if he scored. He did score against Minnesota last week. So I like Gibbs here in what should be a positive game script for Detroit. If not neutral, I still like it if it's a neutral game script against Minnesota. He's receiving the bulk load of carries here, more so than he did previously with Montgomery and him splitting 50-50. So Gibbs is my second anytime touchdown. Lastly, I like Josh Allen of Buffalo going against Kansas City. This is a game where they always play each other tough. Buffalo always plays them well in the regular season and end up winning in the regular season. They don't so much in the postseason, but as I mentioned, this is the regular season, so I expect them to show up. I expect Josh Allen to show up. They've been running the ball quite a bit. He gets a decent amount of carries each game, at least 3 carries each game. He's also going for history, too. If he does score in this game, he'll be the first quarterback in NFL history to have 6 plus rushing touchdowns in his first 8 seasons. So that's on the line for him. It may not be on his mind, but it's also something that he can accomplish in this game. So I like him against Kansas City at home here. Those are my player props as well as my anytime touchdown scores. If you like these videos, please like, subscribe, and comment any questions that you may have. Let's get this money.